Hello, Albsterz. Today we are reacting to the biggest differences between WoW and Final Fantasy XIV by Bellular. One of the biggest differences I think that Final Fantasy and WoW are going to have are the story. I've gave WoW a little go myself. I got to level 15, I got like to the temple area, and the story's not really in your face. You have to go find it within the quest and stuff itself, and they kind of just leave you be. Unlike Final Fantasy XIV, you have to progress through the story. It's mandatory that you progress through the story. And personally, I love that. I love that an MMO makes you go through the story, so you have to understand the story, because I'm a massive story person, loving God of War, Detroit Become Human, The Last of Us, Undertale, just loads of story. I just love it. I really, really do. And I know some people don't, and that's why they play WoW, because the story's not really in your face. So, it's going to be really interesting to see what Bellular has to say about this. Let's have a little look, shall we? And we are down here this time.
So the most important question, are you a cat girl? Yes.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I'm a sun cat girl. Maybe moon cat girl.
You're keeper
I
of the
don't
sun.
know.
Keeper of the sun, Mikote.
Yeah. I
Hey.
mean, that's... I was thinking of going for like a dragon or something, but
No,
I
you
could not
weren't.
make a character on Zodiac, so I had to go with an old, basically mean cat girl character that I created and did not touch at all. But you know what? I'm actually having fun so thus far. So I was doing that.
He wanted to be a cat girl.
Basically, like, actually reading the quest text is important. Now, the game provides, it shows quest text to you via conversations that you click through, like it's a JRPG, like it's an RPG.
Yeah, it's really, really nice.
Now, that is so much more effective than how WoW does it by default, which is just click an NPC, wall of text.
Yeah.
And if you want to solve that problem within World of Warcraft...
So, as you were saying about the narrative of Gridania, all the little things coming together into the bigger things.
Yes,
all
that
the
worked
experience
quite
of
well.
that.
Yes, this is incredible. When I was re-editing something yesterday, I caught on that they actually foreshadowed something that actually happened later in the story, and I was like, oh, only if you would know. So it's crazy. If you are able to look back at old footage and stuff like that, or remember what they said, it's huge. It's like, what? You told me. You actually told me that was what was going to happen, and it's just like, yes.
So, here's the thing about that. That's Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah.
It never stops that.
That's the thing.
It just also has massive moments as well.
It seems like it's...
Oh, yes.
You know, I'm playing like the worst bit, but it just kind of goes better and better and better and better.
Yeah, it's 2.55, like, wow.
It is... I don't know how to put this. I was
Emotional
relatively
rollercoaster?
unsold on ARR when I finished it.
All right.
I was like, right, this is good, but it's not great. This is fine. This is perfectly okay.
Yeah.
And then, now,
It has its stages.
I want to go back into the past and punch myself in the head for not keeping up with FF, because 5.3 is, after finishing 5.3, which is, you know, that's when all of the expansion stuff ends. 5.4 and onwards is lead up to Endwalker, and then some other side stuff.
Okay.
It is
We're gonna
my
take
second
ages to
favorite
get to
game
there.
of all time, without even thinking about the MMO part.
That's
in terms
pretty
of just
big.
the story it tells. The one game that beats it is Nier Automata overall.
Still not played Nier Automata, but Nier Replicant was amazing of the bit that I played of it. I need to still go back to it. I just haven't got the time. Final Fantasy and some other games are trying to take it.
Like it is,
yes.
it is completely insane, and it's all based off that same foundation. It's all that same foundation of just, here's a couple people, they've got problems. Are you gonna help them? You go,
Yeah,
okay,
we always seem to
I'll give you a
be
hand. Every time you show up
bitches.
somewhere new, it's never, oh, hello, venerated one. Don't do any bullshit. Here's the big problem. It is just like, right, someone's there, and it's part of the main story quest. It's not just side quests, where it's like, all right, go help this person with their like menial thing or their trivial kind of.
Yeah, they're fully
trivial,
aware of what we are and
like,
what we're there
tasks
to
and
do.
stuff. And it's a lot of it is like, people here aren't really trained for combat. You're really strong. Go sort them out.
Yeah.
So you fight stuff, and then someone's like, go pick some things while you're there, and it's just consistently being treated like an adventure.
Like Horny Boulder when he was like, oh, I haven't got people to fight, but I know you're strong. Can you come help us? And we're like, all right, we can do.
Absolutely insane.
I've liked that so
it's
far,
completely
actually.
insane,
Yeah.
and they keep that the entire way, even as the character builds up a reputation as being, the hero of the story. It is still like I saw. This is a long time ago, or the post was from a long time ago. I think it might have been from around Heavensward time. Maybe it was early Stormblood, but someone on Reddit posted saying, your main character is barely a character sometimes. You're basically you're a tool. You're like a gun in the back pocket of other characters.
I see that because Minfield always turns to us whenever she has a problem and stuff like that.
Pull out the main character.
Yeah.
And through that, especially when they start to add dialogue choices later on, that really feel meaningful and go back to previous things. They're not massive. They change the next line of dialogue, but nothing else, essentially. Where something, you can make you could say a funny thing, and the character will respond going, you're such a bell end. Anyway.
Yeah, or if you pick a certain class or something like that, then you get different dialogue options for it. It's really, really cool. Oh, it's so... the little different bits. If you pick a Dragon Boy and then go into Heavensward and stuff like that, people said you get different dialogue for that. If you pick Ninja, then Yugi will say some different stuff because she acknowledges that you're now a ninja and stuff like that. It's so awesome.
Anyway, off we go. And it just works so perfectly because you're the one who's done all this immense stuff as all these other characters are doing main characters.
Yeah, you get really rewarded for
it is
reading the text.
It is absolutely unbelievable overall. Yeah. It is unbelievable. And it's purely from that thing of they started it there of learn about these people, learn about this place, and just do that over and over again.
It's that thing where I get a humongous feeling that it's a slow build that is going to pay off.
It is,
which I know it pays off basically from everybody that I've heard.
It really does.
The duties, which are kind of like...
Hold on, before they go into the duties, Corvus, wow. Arriving there at the beginning of the Realm Reborn, and then now going into, Heavensword. There's such, wow. To learn about all the different houses and stuff and the impact that they're now going to have on Ishgard and stuff like that. Because I've only just started Heavensword. And we're a part of one of the houses. Lord Harshenfart, whatever his house is called, I forgot. But, it's amazing. It really, really is amazing. Let's see what they have to say about the duties.
Scenarios that you're bumped into for, key plot moments. They've been good, too. And you go into them really quite seamlessly. I know it'll be way better in the future. Yeah. But what I've really noticed is, even the Realm Reborn cinematography, cutscene stuff, it is less jarring than World of Warcraft Shadowlands is.
It really is.
Way less jarring.
What?
And I think that just goes to show how much better those RPG elements are handled by Shadowbringers. And basically, the World of Warcraft stuff looks completely fucking incompetent in comparison. And
Shadowlands is their most recent expansion.
In-game cutscenes that happen in Stormbringer that I think you showed me, or Stormblood, it was a year ago. And those absolutely, it was they looked like actual video game cutscenes that you get in a video game with a campaign that you play, but it was there in this MMO. You compare it to the WoW ones where you've got Tyronda's mouth doing something, her voice is doing something completely different, and the animations looking all janky, and also a thing that makes the WoW ones look completely embarrassing. Their
I thought that would have improved.
Doesn't match the game they're making at all for World of Warcraft sometimes. Now, I don't mean the art style of the world. Of course, a part of art style is animation, how things are animated. So the acting of WoW's characters is completely incongruent with the narrative. You've got Laura Bailey giving this big performance, and then Jaina with these humongous eyes, this incredibly overexpressive face. And you look at that and you're like, wow, what is going on? This is a weird cartoon, but the voice acting doesn't actually match it.
And that's going to break up all the immersion and stuff like that if you're trying to get into the story for WoW. Oh, that's not good. And the fact that he's saying that Shadowlands, their most recent expansion that come out, November time, is worse than the Realm Reborn that come out in 2012. It's okay. Okay. And when you see the ending of a Realm Reborn and then you watch the Heavens trailer, or Heavensward trailer, Heavensward, yes. The jump in the trailer is just bloody hell. That is nuts.
Nothing, it all feels bad and weird. Whenever Blizzard do, those in-game cutscenes they started doing in Legion, and they've never looked good. They look better now than they did in Legion, but actually it's weird. In Legion, Blizzard, it's like they knew they looked bad, so they used them sparingly and they play to their strengths. But
maybe
now
they
Blizzard will
start
just
getting
flat
better with
out
their
give you a
cutscenes.
close-up of a character's face and it'll look terrible.
Yeah.
And it's also like cinematography seemingly done by just a random game designer.
Yep.
And look, for an example, for our game development, a recent build that we reviewed, very happy with it.
Oh, they got their own game development.
Very, very happy with it overall. But some of the staging and, placement of characters and composition was clearly, it's stuff that, we know it wasn't done by the art director because it wasn't done by the art director, and it's a very early passive thing, so it's fine. But it's one of those things where it's like, that's important. It's important to get those things right. Wow.
Well, yeah, because if the animations and all stuff are whack, then it's going to take the player out of the gaming experience and be like, okay, you kind of feel taken out of the game, and you want the player to feel most connected with the game. So with the cutscenes and everything, try and get it as realistic as possible. Even with like Undertale and stuff, you get so connected to the character because you're reading the text and stuff that maybe it's not animations like that. Or like God of War, for example. Jeez. Oh. So I feel like this is an area that Blizzard is probably going to improve on now that Final Fantasy is actually really knocking on their door saying, boy, we are here. Like, take notice. I feel like this is one of the elements that WoW can straight away learn from.
Oh, completely fucks that up. And Final Fantasy XIV seemingly is doing a better job than WoW now in A Realm Reborn. I know it does a far better job based on the Stormblood stuff you've told me. And then from what I understand, by the time you hit Shadowbringers, they had massively upgraded a bunch of their camera tech and stuff to the point where it is truly incredible looking. Yeah. So that's rough.
It looks incredible looking already.
They have not made the
expansion.
investments to compete with Final Fantasy XIV narratively. And then I think also in Final Fantasy XIV, they are, I think, obviously way more willing to do things slowly and to earn their big moments. Whereas it feels like Blizzard loves their own lore and thinks that they deserve their big moments. That's basically it. It feels like Blizzard thinks they deserve their big moments,
So
whereas
they're trying
Final
to rush
Fantasy
through all the
14
content?
thinks it needs to earn its big moments. That's what I've got from people so far, and it's definitely meshed with my experience of the game thus far.
Oh yeah, because it feels like Final Fantasy XIV is creating like this film, so you get the big finale at the end. I'm just going to keep using this for reference, but 2.55, like, wow. You had this build-up of all these patch quests and all these different stuff that we were doing. You hit 2.55, and then it just comes swinging. It really does. It feels like you're in a heavyweight fight and you're just constantly getting hit. It was just nuts. And then you hit the expansion, the first expansion, and then there's a little bit starts up and then it's starting to ramp up again. Oh, it is beautiful. And I'm guessing from what Bellular is saying is in WoW is constantly these big hits constantly all the time. So it doesn't feel as impactful because you're constantly getting hit with all this stuff. Instead of like someone slowly giving you a nice little left jab here, right jab there, then a combo. Instead, you're getting hit with constant combos all the time.
Far as well.
That's entirely it. An expansion will be, over 3 patches over like a year and a bit. They'll drop stuff at the start of an expansion, and then it'll pay off at the end.
Yeah.
But even better than that, there are so many callbacks and things that I remember happening in 2.0. Characters that are important, events that are important, things have happened. And sometimes they're a little bit kind of just call back to in a sense. But after finishing Shadowbringers, it's like, no, there are things that they have told you at the start of 2.0 that if you don't remember them, your experience is worse.
What?
And not in the way at keep all this shit in your head, but in the case of this is a linear story that they have told. They told it piecemeal because they've had to, because they can't tell it all in one go, but they've told it over, 2013, 2019? They've told it over 7 years.
Isn't it?
And it has been absolutely remarkable.
Yeah.
I think that specifically the recent main scenario quest writers are they are next level.
They're also
they
doing
aren't just
Final
good writers
Fantasy
for
16
video
as
games
well.
or good writers for an MMO. They are literally good writers. Especially
So good to hear.
especially with stuff in 5.3, there's a level to it where I had to stop and I was like, fuck fuck me.
I guess
It just makes me more hyped to get to 5.3 and get to Endwalker. But you know, we're taking this slow progression because that's the way I like to do it. Ready for Endwalker, but damn, this game just keeps blowing me away. It really, really
It's
does.
just on. That is unreasonable.
there's something we need to engage with here.
Okay.
Blizzard are good at making worlds and building lore.
Yeah.
I do not think Blizzard are good writers. And I've never understood why people think that Blizzard are this like renowned.
But they have the money to
storytellers.
hire good writers.
And
It's just like
I want to dive into that point a little bit more. I mean, you look at say StarCraft 2.
Yeah.
And how they, I mean, look, I kind of like the StarCraft 2 story for what it is, and like it's fun to go through, but it certainly does not live up to the promise of StarCraft 1 and what it established. You know, basically
okay.
StarCraft 2, I mean, you got is basically Jim and his relationship.
Yeah.
I've never played
I mean,
StarCraft in my
we
life.
kind of know there's very real life parallels with Metzen's life that he has admitted are actually what drove a bunch of that creative direction, which I don't really like how it went down that way. But you know, there's that. Like Diablo 3. I mean, fucking hell, what awful storytelling that game has. What a silly disaster.
I don't remember a fraction of it. I played that game like crazy. Like,
yeah. And then, you know, in World of Warcraft, I mean, Blizzard have made bizarre narrative decisions for ages.
yeah.
You know, their world building and their lore stuff has been cool, but their actual storytelling in game has always been shoddy. You look at Battle for Azeroth, where, I mean, they.
Wasn't that regarded as one of the best? I think I remember Asmongold saying that's like one of the best is Battle of Azeroth, wasn't it?
Raced through their lore so fast and were so bad at really explaining things well. It's like the only good Blizzard storytelling happens in transmedia narrative, not in game. So I guess for me, it's like super jarring to play an MMO and have good storytelling within the MMO and not just as a part of the transmedia narrative and broad world building facts that are interesting.
Yeah. That's what I got from playing WoW, is that it was in and amongst the world and it weren't actually in the quest. I was like, so where's the story? I kept asking my mates. I was like, where is the story in WoW? Hello? I'm doing all this stuff. And I'd have to go find and hunt out the quest to continue on with the story because it wasn't clear. But I know some people do like that with all the questing and stuff and don't want to be bombarded with story. But it seems like with World of Warcraft, if they're going to want to compete with Final Fantasy going forward, they're going to have to reshuffle and get this story stuff down. Because Final Fantasy is only going to constantly keep going like this. It seems like they're just on a roll now.
So, you know, it's like the Starfang thing that everybody liked.
Yeah.
That was like a short movie that people watched and had an emotional reaction to. That wasn't video game that people played and had an emotional reaction to. So it's, you know, it's interesting. It's interesting. I don't really know how Blizzard can fix up this problem because it seems institutionally they're just sitting there being like, oh yeah, you know, we're here to make awesome moments and epic narratives. But it's like they need to slow down and spend more time setting their things up.
So they're going to have a reshuffle.
Times they have just blasted through so much lore that it's like their storytelling hasn't been able to keep up with the pace of like the broad narrative movement they've been making. So that's an issue.
That's interesting.
And I think there's a space where a lot of people, if they can find themselves able to go and play something Japanese that feels different and get into it, and actually have that suspension of disbelief, then I think it will be a lot more successful for not the lore side, but it'll be more successful for the storytelling side, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, that is
the storytelling is just phenomenal.
Nicky experienced going through, because obviously he's a big anti-weeb, and he's just like, now that he is happy to suspend his disbelief and has done it, he's like, no, this is absolutely insane. If you can just
like I do with every single game, just go into it with an open mind and just experience the game for what it is, regardless if it's Japanese or if it's like World of Warcraft or something like that, or if it's like this and this and this and this. Just go in with an open mind and just experience the game, what the developers put it out for. Because that's the best way to experience a game.
If you can just let those preconceptions of what this is or what you think this might be go, it is absolutely, it's next level. It's next level. And World of Warcraft, I don't know how they can solve it without completely rethinking everything they do and write and all of their pacing.
Well, they're gonna have to.
They need
That-
they need to look at their 10-year
gonna
plan
have
or
to.
5-year plan or the plan for next expansion, and just throw it out.
They need to stop like
They need to
stop
reshuffle by the sounds of
having
it.
the level up experience of their expansions have so little bearing in the end game.
Yep.
Like, there's a bunch of flavor and context. It's all fine and interesting, but it's almost as if 2 expansions in a row, it's like you hit max level and then things actually kick off. Because it's like, you know, we've learned a few factoids and stuff, but for Zoval and Sylvanas as actual characters, you know, people with motivations, we learned kind of nothing about them as we leveled up.
Yeah,
Right.
it was just introducing you to all this other stuff.
Yeah, so it's like, what if all of that time where we were dealing with, you know, killing bugs in Ardenweald, we actually were learning about the characters that would be core to this expansion.
That would be cool. That would be cool. Like, even Guild Wars 2 does that. When they implement some new story and a new character and stuff like that, you learn about them. That's crazy how WoW doesn't have that.
And I think back to, you know, all that time we spent in Kulturas and Zandalar.
Yeah.
And like, I kind of get we were solving those problems, but it's like that was an expansion about Battle for Azeroth, and I felt like the Battle for Azeroth happened. We weren't there. We were just we were then world building these two islands that we, you know, would sort of not end up being that important, really.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's that weird thing of
It sounds very
Blizzard just like
luckless.
bam,
Luckless.
bunch of stuff and a time-gated campaign for the story that actually matters.
Oh.
Whereas I'd rather they were just like, you know, slow burn through the entire
This
thing.
is putting me off to even
And
like
then
try and
not
WoW
having that
again in the
time-gated
future.
Covenant campaign, because I think, I mean, I don't know what FF does, but certainly it's hard to reconcile a well-paced narrative with 30 minutes or whatever, 40 minutes a week.
See, what it does, like, I am not aware of any time gating it does outside of this isn't out yet.
No. No, I don't think Final Fantasy XIV does any time gating. For story, if the MSQ's there, you can play it. Like he just said. If it's available, then you can play it. I'm trying to think. I don't think there is no time gating. Let me know down in the comments if there is actually any time gating. From what I've experienced so far in The Realm Reborn through the MSQ, there is no time gating whatsoever. You go from quest to quest to quest to quest to quest.
Unless you consider go do this fight time gate, because the
It's not time gate, though.
MSQs will just go right. It is now logical that there's a dungeon that you're going to do because there's a thing to do in it. There's a problem
He's
to
referring
solve
to
in
the
it,
Crystal Tower.
or you need something from it, so you go, you party up, you go into that dungeon.
Yeah.
And then same with trials, where the end bosses aren't.
But the Crystal Tower is so mandatory. The story in that to then carry on. If I didn't do the Crystal Tower, I would have cried, really. And the coils as well. Really recommend, if you haven't done the coils of Bahamut, that you do it, because, oh, wow. It explains a lot of stuff. It really does.
Like raids that you don't engage with at all. The end bosses of like all your content of your patches are trials, as they're called, which are, here's a single boss in a room, you queue for it in the duty finder. It's not extremely hard, but it's difficult. If you don't do mechanic correct, you die. Most mechanics are telegraphed in a way that if you learn the design language, you know, don't stand in orange. For the first couple boss fights, if you don't stand in orange, you're fine.
Yep, don't get crushed by rock slides and stuff like this.
Here, perhaps Onyxia or Sartharian, as in kind of one boss that the raid can go to, versus a current WoW world boss.
Okay.
Don't even dare.
Like, is that our sort
Yes,
of-
it is very
He did not like that in the
much
slightest.
Onyxia. It is very much Onyxia. It is very much like the last boss of Crucible of Storms in isolation.
Gotcha.
It is a raid boss that's a little bit simple, that you queue up to, you go in, that's it.
Yeah, some of the mechanics
That's
can
it.
be
There's no- but
devastating.
that stuff usually is an intro cutscene that will, like, the at the start everyone waits for you because they're forced to in trials. It's literally you can't pull the boss until people have either skipped the cutscene or watched it all. And then they usually end with an ending cutscene. And then you'll be teleported beside the entrance to the raid because of the trial, because you're supposed to, like, basically it brings you up to a point where it goes, here's the fight.
Yeah.
And then there's a thing you can click that will open the duty finder for you. You can do it from anywhere else. You can go do other things while you wait in queue. but then at the end of it teleports you back there. So it is this like seamless bit of here's MMO boss fight in the middle of your single player JRPG. Because I saw someone in chat there say,
Cool.
I'm not
I
gonna
really
scroll
like it. It is really, really smooth. Like, I was
long
doing
gone,
something in Limbs
but
of
someone's
Wild,
saying it
searching for
sounds
a
like
dungeon.
very much just a single player RPG. Where's the MMO? That's one of the kind of biggest things about it. It's both. That's what I kind of don't get, how it's so like it is. To me, it feels miraculous that I finish playing like however many hours of single player content in Shadowbringers.
I think, in Shadowbringers, I was about to say, in Final Fantasy, I think there's about 100 hours worth of single player
Like
content.
30, 20 something, 30 of just I am leveling, but I'm not leveling. I'm never leveling. I'm never thinking.
You're playing a story in a game.
Yeah, I'm playing through a story, and then at the end of that story, I am level 80. I've had an incredible experience. I've had 30 hours of this shit is absolutely incredible.
It was nuts. Oh, and there you go. That is it. That is it. That was the biggest differences between WoW and Final Fantasy XIV. That's really, really interesting to see the differences between the two. And it really does seem like if WoW wants to try and stay with Final Fantasy XIV in the future, they are going to have to reshuffle and start taking their pacing for their story slowly and have a nice little build-up and stuff like that. That's why competition is so good within any industry that you are in. Microsoft, PlayStation 4, look how they're just constantly one-upping each other all the time. WoW and Final Fantasy XIV. Final Fantasy XIV is doing all this stuff. It's now the #1 played MMO in the world. Blizzard are not going to like that, so they're going to be like, okay, we need our player base back. We need to get WoW back on top. So what can we learn from Final Fantasy XIV to make our game better? And then Final Fantasy go, oh, okay, they've just added this. That's quite cool. We yoinked that. And then we make that better. And then it just keeps making both games good. So